Glenn, the universe of people who are surprised is a universe of zero humans. But I wonder if that includes DOJ.
Oh, no, I don't think anyone is surprised. These filings don't tend to be enthralling reading, but this was a pretty well-written, well-articulated, and very readable. I'm giving it like a book review here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But it was a very concise.
It's Trump.
It was just a very concise explanation of the range of their political and legal arguments, with a much more of a heavy emphasis on political arguments. They make a lot of references to the Presidential Records Act and suggest that they'll have this novel legal argument that the Presidential Records Act supersedes other things that are included in the indictment, including the Espionage Act. But the core of this is that, as you said in your introduction, that the fact that he's an active presidential candidate and the fact that Walt Nauta is by his side with coat on arm creates a different set of circumstances. And then there's this other larger argument that the sheer weight of the evidence that they have to go through, 833,000 documents have been presented thus far through the discovery process, makes it really tough for him and his legal team to deal with. Now, that said, I mean, one of the interesting dynamics is in making that particular argument, they cite the case of former Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega, saying Noriega needed more time to get his case together as an example of the complexity of the prosecution. But he really is, in this particular document, throwing everything on the table. And it seems, from our perspective, that he is challenging Judge Cannon to show her cards immediately. So we're going to find out within the next couple of weeks precisely what she's inclined to do as a result of her response to this document.
And Glenn, does the government respond in writing? I mean, are we awaiting a counterargument from the government? Because I think the election you could argue it either way, right? He's running to be the commander in chief and to have access to every classified document the government possesses and creates and produces. He's sort of client number one for all of that. It seems to go to the heart of the job he thinks he's applying for again.
And also, there is, to that point, there's sort of the moral hazard question, right? Which is, does running for president and getting a lot of popular support essentially mean that you can set your own timetable in terms of an accusation of criminality, right? So it's one thing to sort of understand that there are special circumstances. It's another thing to grant someone special privileges. It's hard to discern from this document which one of those that they're requesting. But yeah, you can easily see Jack Smith and his legal team making the counter argument. And remember, this need for speed, the fact that Smith is pushing ahead expeditiously, which was in his press release when he took the job, that he wants to move ahead as quickly as possible, is part of his mandate. He wants to get as much done before the political season kicks in, which is why he set such an aggressive trial timetable and would like to, at least on paper, get this thing rolling before the end of the year.
There is nothing new, Pete Strzok, about Donald Trump wanting to use DOJ as his sort of personal legal defense department. What is new is running in front of the American public as, the public is basically a human shield. He says, vote for me, and you will protect me from criminal accountability for crimes that not only did I think Hillary Clinton should have been locked up for, things she didn't do, but the very essence of being the country's commander in chief is on the line in the outcome of these rulings and in this case in general. And I wonder what you make of all the power right now as we wait with bated breath to see what Judge Aileen Cannon does, the power she has over determining whether we live in a country with two systems of justice, one for Trump and one for everyone else.
Yeah, well, Nicole, it's certainly true that he's being treated differently than any other defendant that I've seen. Having said that, I haven't seen charged individuals who are running for president. So these aren't absurd arguments that are being made by his attorneys. There is something special about charging and bringing to trial somebody who is presumptively the Republican nominee for the presidency. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, this is absurd. If you go back to Trump himself in 2016, he said, should Hillary Clinton be indicted, that might cause something along the lines of a constitutional crisis, and she should consider dropping out of the race because it would be that damaging and that severe. So he's spoken about this exact issue and what he thinks somebody should do only when that person is his opponent. But look, I think there is no question that if you can't charge somebody while they're the president, if you can't charge them, if the argument is while they're running for the presidency, then what? You have a 1.5-year window where if there's a broad range of criminality, that's the only time where they can be brought to trial. I mean, that strains credulity. Now, of course, as you noted, all eyes now are going to focus on Judge Cannon. I think she has a lot of latitude. She doesn't need necessarily to agree to some indefinite postponement. The fact of the matter is, just in the CIPA litigation, the litigation surrounding classified information alone, that can take, if Trump is so inclined to slow it down, that can take months and months and months just to address the classified issues, notwithstanding any other pre-trial litigation. So I would be very surprised to see her say, yes, this is delayed indefinitely. Of course, who knows? We're all playing a little bit of a guessing game. But I have very little expectation that this trial is going to occur anytime in 2023.
Wow. David Jolly, let me show you Chris Christie's description of what Trump is actually motivated by right now as he lobs this filing in.
If we offer you a plea, which I'm certain they will, and you turn it down, and you take us to trial, and you're convicted, that judge is sending you to jail. And I think that's what he goes to bed every night thinking. Every night. And all this bravado and everything else, I've known him for 22 years. When I was doing these cases in New Jersey, and I would put political figures in jail, he would say to me, I could never do that. I could never go to jail. And I'm telling you, no matter what he says, no matter how he's bragging and going on about him not being afraid, he goes to bed every night thinking about the sound of that jail cell door closing behind him.
This is something that I have understood to be the case with Trump since he was running for president the first time. This is something I understood to be the impetus for his rage, his unbridled rage at Jeff Sessions when he recused from the Russia investigation and allowed for Mueller to be appointed. This drove all the rageful tweets at Rod Rosenstein, at Jim Comey, at Pete Strzok, at Lisa Page, at Andy McCabe. This terror of being held accountable for things that he knows in his head expose him to criminal liability is what has driven everything we've seen him do on the public stage, on the political stage. So the irony, David Jolly, in him arguing, I'm going to be back on my political stage, you can't hold me accountable, is just rich.
Yeah, it is, Nicole. Look, Donald Trump is somebody we know who has these quiet fears, right? And it manifests itself in his anger and his outrage. But I think Chris Christie also skipped over the former president's vanity, somebody who probably thinks that he is above accountability. And that is a toxic mixture in somebody who is now facing the loss of liberty in New York, as well as federally and potential with additional charges in other jurisdictions. I do think it's important for, look, as you said, surprised no one that he asked for a delay until after the election. I think we need to break his argument in half on this for one very important reason. They are suggesting the delay is necessary because he is a candidate for the presidency, not because he's the president. If he was the president, you could understand the delay. Becoming a candidate is a decision, an election that he has made in his personal life. And every candidate has real life stuff to deal with, jobs, home, perhaps legal proceedings. This is not new to be facing a legal proceeding while you're a candidate. And so I don't think that argument will ultimately hold up. What we do know is it's going to strain the courts. And I think this is just leading the nation into something that I'm not sure we are fully prepared for yet, which this presidential cycle is going to absolutely strain justice as we know it in the United States, and is going to put some very important questions in front of the American people next November. If we view it through a political lens as partisan voters, we are going to miss the greater story here, which is the possibility of our democracy and justice in America fracturing next November.